Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us tmosso@the1916company.com. It's in the description below. It is your purchase and pricing email question line for purchasing this or any watch you see on any of our platforms. Email tmosso@the1916company.com for price. Today, we're discussing the Breguet Marine Automatic, latest generation, launched in 2018. This is the 5517 Ti in grade 5 titanium. 40 millimeters in diameter, it is 11.7 millimeters thick. From the edge of the case to the opposite side, it's 47.6 millimeters, but you can see that we have this rigid bracelet. It won't pull down vertically. It flares out a little bit on each side. So the total rigid distance, if we measure this outboard link on each side, is actually 55.5 millimeters across the wrist, which does swell the size of the watch and the perception of the size on the wrist. Now, being mostly titanium and sapphire, though, it is a very light watch. So the size isn't as big a challenge as you might think, especially considering the bracelet is angled down as it exits the lug. So I could recommend this watch for a wrist as small as 14 centimeters circumference. Don't be intimidated by the end link to end link size. Take a look at the lugs. That's what you really need to think about. You need to think about 47.6. For me, that is the effective distance across the wrist. That's what I'm perceiving physically and optically. Now, it is a thin watch, not super thin, but thin enough that with a sloped bezel, it will slide underneath the cuff. It's a Breguet after all. It should be a dress watch. Over the top, you can see the lugs are still inboard of the edge of my wrist. We'll take a look at this bracelet. It's nicely made. Now, this is an integration of bracelet and case. So it's fixed together using screws and bars, so a very solid arrangement that's going to prevent the kind of occasional disasters that dog spring bars. The bracelet has a little bit of a taper as we move down from the lugs, and you can see that there are little hollows inside the links that are polished. Outer faces are polished, satinated across the top. We've got removable links fixed by screws. Note that we've got this intermediate sized link, and that we've got one of them on each side for fine-tuning the fit in case you're in between sizes. The clasp is full titanium, double fold, and you can see that we've got a twin trigger release here. So sequential close, this side before this side. Press the twin triggers to open it. It will not pop open inadvertently. And so it's quite secure on the wrist. The watch does have a screw-down crown. It is 100 meters water resistant. You see this wave-like motif acting as the crown guards. The case band, a sort of colonnade similar to the coining of previous Breguet watches. We have a bezel that's fairly complex. It's got a vertical lip, then it has a satin-finished shallow plane, and then it has this domed gadroon that runs all the way around in high polish. The Breguet crown is deeply knurled with a combination of media blast and polish, quite attractive right there. The dial, handsome and surprisingly luminescent. Let's take a look. Not only can you see the hours, you can actually see the individual minutes quite clearly. This is an exemplary sports watch. Taking a look at the dial, it's a sort of anthracite sunburst, but what you might not know is that it's also made of solid gold. So the elements you see, the cutting, where cutting is present, such as the window or the nameplate, that's done on a rose lathe. You could see guilloché main, that means guilloché by hand. And then we have these highly stylized Roman numerals in white gold with white gold hands to match. White gold will not tarnish or oxidize over time. There's a little nautical pennant as the counterweight to the Lancet-style seconds hand. And you can see that there's a little bit of a step down to the aperture for the date, so it's not a sheer vertical cut through the dial. Nicely done. Also nice that the date wheel is the same color as the dial. If you look carefully, you can see that the sunburst graining here radiates out from an imaginary center point in the middle of the logo and the marquee rather than the usual origin point below the hands. And we have these modified Breguet hands. They're half Dauphine, half Breguet, faceted down the center for better contrast against the dial. Taking a look at the back, you can see that Breguet is very proud of the fact that it was once the watchmaker or timekeeper of the French Navy. Horlogère de la Marine, and then a ship's wheel in solid gold with a combination of polish, beveling, and satination, quite attractive. Underneath that, you can see caliber 777A, developed by La Manna, which is now manufacturer Breguet, so effectively an in-house caliber. It doesn't have traditional Geneva waves. These are designed to evoke the planks of a 19th century naval vessel. And then we've got other elements, including mirrored bevels, which you can see well from this angle. The same treatment lavished on all of the jewel sinks. We have satination for the wheels. We have engine turning on the base plate. We have black polished screw heads with chamfered slots and circumference. Let's take a look at the barrel. You can see the barrel has been solarized, which is quite attractive. And then adjacent to it, beneath the springs, you can see that we have a little miniature engine turning. It's quite attractive. Now, we also have modern technology here. Let's do our best to rotate this and take a look at the free-sprung balance. Okay. So, the balance right here, beaten away. It is a recessed bolt variable inertia free-sprung balance, and it's adjusted in 6 positions, which is one more than a standard chronometer. It has an anti-magnetic silicon escapement, which, if you look carefully, you can see is the escape wheel to reduce the need for lubrication. And then we have an anti-magnetic silicon hairspring as well. Automatic winding with stop seconds and a quick set date. It has a 55-hour power reserve, robustly anti-magnetic, shock resistant, and thanks to the 100-meter case with screw-down crown, water resistant. The timepiece is, if anything, one of the most underrated integrated bracelet sports watches you can find, from an all-time great name in the business that has the might of the Swatch Group behind it to ensure that there will always be money to provide parts and service for your Breguet. That's not always the case with hip independence. This one's built for the long haul. Reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.